Hey everybody, welcome back to Worried to Wealthy. Today what we're going over is should we be concerned about a dividend cut? I'm going to tell you all about that. I'm also going to give you an example at the very end that I think should help out as a good visual. That being said, just a quick shout out to to just the channel. Honestly, I'm so stoked. We now have of this recording, we have 12 subscribers and we've already passed 1,000 views. So thank you so freaking much for people who watch this. I really hope it's helpful. That being said, let's just go ahead and get into it. And I'm just going to answer it straight up. Let me go close this. No, I'm not. I'm just going to close this out here. Am I worried about a dividend cut? No, I'm not. And if you follow what I do, or if you do what I'm doing, and of course, my disclaimer is I'm not a financial advisor. This is not like a financial advice, right? I'm a guy on YouTube, so please treat this as entertainment. That's my disclaimer there. But if you're doing what I'm doing, if you're doing your own research and you decide to buy VIG and DGRO, right, ETFs, are you worried? Should you be worried about a dividend cut? And I really think no. And I'll give you a couple reasons why, and I'm going to give you an example at the end there. Basically, so VIG follows, and this is just important information to set this up. VIG follows the S&P US Dividend Growers Index. And what that means is basically right here, you have at least 10 years, 10 consecutive years of dividend growth. And it also excludes the top 25% of the highest yielding companies in that group, right? So you have a list of only the companies that have increased their dividend every single year for at least 10 years consecutively. And then you take that list and you take the top fourth and you take it out. And the reason why is basically typically those are businesses that aren't appreciating as much. There may be something wrong. So just keep that in mind. The other one, DGRO, is very straightforward as well. Basically, it requires any company to have a 5-year track record of increasing their dividends every single year, while also ensuring that the firm's payout ratio is no more than 75% of their earnings. Basically, a payout ratio, if a company earns $100,000, they can't pay out in dividends more than $75,000 in dividends, right? And so it's kind of like, so for example, if there was a company, right, the company made $1 billion, well, they can't pay out more than 750 million in earnings or else they get kicked out. And I kind of think of the same way as a person, right? If a person makes, for example, $100,000 a year, but they're spending $75,000 a year, that's probably not good financial, right? Stability, financial, just in general, it's not good. So I hope that helps. If it's confusing, leave me a comment, and I'll do like a video on the payment and the payout ratios. So that being said, why am I not worried, right? Because these kind of dividends, basically, they're not owed to you. Just because you and I are shareholders does not mean that that they're required to pay as a dividend, right? So if I go here, I'm going to give you a couple of different examples. I'm going to give you a couple of mine, one that happened in real life, and then I'm going to give you a couple that happened in the past. So something that happened in real life, like as recent, I guess, to me. Actually, we'll go with me first. I invested in Disney and I invested in Boeing. And it's very simple. If you want to check out their dividend history, you go ahead. And spoiler alert, Disney and Boeing both cut their dividends, right? These are big companies. Disney is probably one of the most recognizable logos besides maybe Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is maybe more. Boeing and Airbus, those are the only two companies that like I know that sell airplanes. Like how the hell they cut their dividends? But as you go down here, basically they were on track and they did actually enter VIG. They had 10 years of growing their dividends, and it was low enough. And the top 25% of yielders, I think that's like 3.25 and above. Don't quote me on. I think that's somewhere around there is when they let them in and where the cut is. Boeing, on the other hand, did it for about, I think, like 9 years or something like that, like from 2011 to 2012, and then all the way up. You can check my math if you'd like, but basically, they both cut their dividends completely. They didn't like cut it, like they suspended it 100%. They eliminated their dividends, and so Boeing had increased it for 9 years, so that would be in DGRO only, right? Because you have to be 10 years to get into VIG. But Disney had been doing it for 10 years, so it was in both DGRO and VIG, right? So holding DGRO, you'd have two companies already that cut their dividends in 2020. And honestly, I bet you there was more. Why am I not worried? If you go down here, actually, I'm going to go up to dividend growth. I'll show you exactly why I'm not worried. is because all these other companies, like for example, DGRO holds over 400 companies. So if every other company besides these few, let's say 5, cut their dividend, right? Well, if every single other company, 420, because there's 425 holdings in DGRO, if 420 increase and 5 cut or eliminate, you're still going to be good. And if we go down here, right, here it is, it just keeps going up and to the right. And if we go down here, this is where it is. 2019, DGRO paid 93 cents. In 2020, Boeing and Disney and probably a couple others cut or completely eliminated, like these two, completely eliminated their dividend altogether. And you got a 10% increase in your holdings if you held DGRO. How freaking cool is that? You are protected by all the other strong companies that held up and continued to increase their dividends. Same thing with VIG, right? We go down to dividend growth. You see here, it's up and to the right. This is a small increase, but it's actually, no, that's actually a pretty big one. And if we go down here, 2019, right? They paid $2.13. You got a 7% increase in 2020 when Walt Disney was a top 10 holding in VIG. That's how much of a holding, that's how big it was in this fund. And it completely eliminated the dividend. Yet whoever was a shareholder of VIG, like myself, I got a raise. So I'm protected from companies if they do dividend cuts. And the second part is really like, okay, there's other companies that you know that have done this. AT&T had been doing it for years, like 25 or 30 years or something like that. And then it finally cut. Bank of America did it in, they did that in 2009. If you go to dividend history and then you scroll down and you go to max, exit out of that, you go to max and they completely cut. It was like decimated. They're literally giving out a penny, right, per share. So companies are not obliged to just give you a dividend just because you're a shareholder. It's not required. The board actually votes on them every single time. More recently, what's interesting is a company that you guys might know, Intel. Intel had actually been doing it for like 8 years, right? 8 years. I don't think it's actually taken place yet, or the dividend cuts that hasn't basically renewed here. But they cut their dividend by 66%, and they've been upping it for a while. And everyone knows Intel, right? They're a chip maker. I think they even make computers, at least at one point they did, and they cut their dividend. And this is another reason why you don't invest at least in individual holdings and make it most of your net worth. There's a guy called Gen X Dividend Investor on YouTube. He's great, but I'll give you the synopsis. He knew a guy that basically had most of his like wealth in Intel because he worked there, and it was a big yield, and he was going to retire off that dividend income. And then a year later they cut. And so what's nice about DGRO and VIG is they don't let any holding like go crazy, right? And there's not going to be one holding that's like 20% of VIG or even 10% of DGRO. They make sure they cut it to like 4 or 5% so none of them grow crazy out of control. And that way you're always diversified. A couple more that might possibly happen is 3M. And if you don't know 3M, I guarantee you know their products or you know a neighbor that uses them because they make everything from Post-its, command strips, my favorite Scotch tape. They make sponges. I have no clue what this is. Band-Aids. They have packing tape, N95 masks, probably during, of course, COVID. They make highlighters. This is probably painter's tape, I think. I don't know what this is. They make so many different things. It's crazy, but apparently they're having lawsuits for forever chemicals that are in the products. So they're having a lot of headwinds there because they're trying to conserve cash, I think. People are honestly speculating, but to possibly pay out these lawsuits, and they might cut their dividends. Now, let's see, what would this be? I wonder if this would be in VIG or DGRO. So this has a very high yield, over 3.25%. So this wouldn't be in VIG, even though it does have more than 10 years. 64 years is insane. But this probably would be this wouldn't be in VIG because of the high yield. It's over 3.25%, but it would be in DGRO because it's lower than a 75% payout ratio. You can go back in the video and check out the definitions again and the methodology, but it does have less than 75% payout ratio, and it has more than 5 years of dividend growth. And so if they cut this, I'm not worried at all. I'm really not. Another one is Walgreens. Apparently, I was just searching through, and one of these guys was saying basically the dividend is not well covered by the earnings, how much they earn, right? So basically almost paying out as much as they earn. And that's from February 10th. And again, these are speculations. These are not like, real things that are going to happen. But again, so would this be in VIG or DGRO or none? Very high yield. So VIG has kicked this one out, even though it does have more than 10 years of growth. But again, the payout ratio looks like it's 46%. So I don't know who's right there. Said the earnings, right, is barely enough to cover the dividends. But this is why I do ETFs, because again, I don't know everything, right? I don't know everything about investing. If I was, maybe I'd be like Warren Buffett, right, where I'm picking individual stocks. But at the end of the day, this looks like it would be in DGRO. Remember, DGRO is basically 5 years of dividend growth and payout ratio under 75%. So even if both of these cut their dividends in the same year, I'm not worried at all. Finally, the last thing is just a quick example. I did this. I just literally just put all these in there. And so this is in year one, right? Year one in 2023, all of your 40, let's say like 41 stocks, right? Let's pretend the ETF only has 41 stocks. And each of those stocks pay you $1, right? I know they're weighted differently, right? And stuff like that. But if you just like pretend and just roll with me for a second, every single stock is paying you out $1. And so you get $40 for 2023. Now 2024 rolls around, right? 2024 rolls around, and I said, okay, on average, DGRO has about a 10.5% growth rate every single year, and VIG has about 7.88 at the time of this recording. So I just put it in the middle, 9, right? 10.5, almost 8. So what happens is, boom, right here, you're already getting an increase. That's even if right, if you had two companies, if Disney and Boeing both cut their dividends, right, you'd be totally fine. And that's the cool part, is that all these other companies, and remember, VIG has 315 holdings, and DGRO has about 425 holdings, right? So we're only talking about 40 companies, or I guess it'd be 39 companies picking up the slack for these two companies. So imagine if you had 425 companies in DGRO, two of them eliminate their dividend altogether. You have 423 companies that are probably going to increase their dividend, right? So that's just, I hope that visual helped. I really hope it helped. If you guys saw this, that was a little shameless plug. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Reddit as well if you guys like. But hey, thank you guys so much. I mean, I can't believe we've passed 1,000 views together. I have 12 subscribers now. If you haven't subscribed, I would love to earn that from you and get that subscribe button clicked. It only takes a few seconds, and from all this editing and research, it really helps out a lot. Until next time, we really appreciate it. And of course, if you guys want, grab those free stocks in the description below if you would like to sign up for Robinhood if you haven't already. So again, thanks for joining back with Worried to Wealthy. We'll do another video sometime next week, and happy investing.